Welcome back, everybody. Glad you're here.
Haven't got enough of it from the time before, so we're going to have another crack at it, eh?
Sucker for punishment.
Yeah, something like that. Straight into our word of the day, which today is safety, which I hear the definition I've got is the condition of being protected from or unlikely to cause danger, risk or injury. Denoting something designed to prevent injury or damage, or if we want to talk about the American Football League, a defensive back who plays in a deep position.
Safety.
Also important. Our Urban Dictionary definitions, there's numerous. You can look them up for yourself if you're that interested. But there is this one which is a little bit funny, and the safety, or safety it simply says, it's like a friend who goes on a first date with you in case it goes bad, or it can be the safety phone call, like you get an unexpected phone call because you're on a bad date. So like you've secretly texted your friend to say, you have to call me right now to get me out of this situation that I'm in. I don't know.
I've had many times that I've had to use a safety.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, all right. So that's another term for safety, which is a little bit humorous on our modern day Urban Dictionary explanations of what words now mean, which is not what they used to mean, but that's okay. We can work with that.
Speaking of safety, what sort of news of the day, the current events of the day do we have today?
The news of the day. We've got a couple of things we're going to have a little squiz at here. And one is a safety concern for a young man, an individual who has infiltrated a plane, a Jetstar flight from Avalon in Melbourne to Sydney. He's snuck his way through, dressed in his high vis and with his tool belt and stuff, and was only, I guess, apprehended as trying to actually enter the plane rather than anybody spotting that he'd come onto the area where the planes are or anything beforehand. It's
there's a lot to say about the security and the safety of the airport.
Yeah.
Considering, because they say that he jumped over a fence to get into the airfield.
Or through a fence or something.
Through, yeah.
Like there was a break in the fence somewhere and he's just discovered that and made his way through it, or maybe he made it. I'm not sure. I don't know the ins and outs of what the young lad did in that regard, but he did make his way onto that aircraft and was apprehended by some passengers and staff of the flight. Pretty scary stuff. He allegedly had mentioned that he had a bomb in his bag, and he was also carrying a weapon of some sort, which
I think he had a shotgun, and I think there was something that was said that he made a claim that he had bombs on him, and that they found him with some fake bombs, not real bombs, but that's just what the media is telling us.
Yeah, well, I mean, we're not entirely sure what happened there, but what we can see is that at some point the safety of those staff and the passengers and also the young person themselves, there's something really went wrong there for him to even have made his way to that point to follow through with whatever he'd concocted in his mind. It just shouldn't have been possible. And it wasn't to do with like going through the airport itself, through the all the checks they like to do.
Screening.
The screening, that wasn't even a consideration because he just bypassed all of that entirely. So
I think when you look at those sort of things, we put a lot of money and a lot of effort into those security screening checks, and obviously something's failed outside of that. The fact that he found it easy to get onto the airfield in that manner, there's obviously something that they need to look at in their security and safety there. But even when you look at that before that, I mean, we've got to remember that this was a young man, and none of us are free from sin, and we all make mistakes.
Yeah.
But you have to look at this was a young man. What was going through his head to think that was a good idea, and could we have made some changes beforehand and it actually affected everyone else's safety? I mean, I don't know what was going through his head. I've read a lot of comments on some things, and they sort of said, well, mental health illnesses, and that could quite possibly be a possibility.
It's just conjecture, though, realistically.
It is,
we don't know. But if there is something like that going on with him, why hasn't someone been in his corner to support him so he is safe as well? Why do we get to this point where this has occurred? It's a tragedy from all avenues, realistically.
Yeah, I think when you look at the safety aspect, like I was saying before, if we can attack these things with mental health illness, and I mean, even if this is not what he was facing, and maybe he just wanted to do that because he found it of some kind of interest, but even still, even if we look at the way society is today and the money and the funding that we put into certain things, maybe mental health illness is a good aspect for us to try and get to that, because you hear a lot of things that happen and they're always put down to someone suffering from mental health.
Yeah. We did touch on a story recently where the people that were implicated in it were, after having been caught out for what they'd done, they were also cited as suffering from mental health illnesses or having episodes of being unwell because of the circumstances they found themselves in. We do need to be looking after one another and keeping everybody safe across the board. Overworked, underpaid, all the people in there, and well done to the pilot and well done to the passenger. I think I've got his name here, Barry Clark. Good on you, Barry. Well done for having your wits about you and just stopping that from turning into something worse than what it already was.
Exactly. What other subjects a bit more lighthearted have we got?
Well, it's not really lighthearted. Safety being the word that we're talking about today. We've got an election coming up in Australia in May.
Who's your safety for that one? No, please
you
don't.
might need like the full American football gear on just to go out in public if you want to talk about what you want to be voting for.
But talk about politics. Oh.
Goodness gracious. It will be interesting. We'll all be getting that absolute bombardment of the disclaimers at the end of every single ad for every party and all the things that they want to promote and tell you how safe you will be and your children will be and your parents will be and your dog will be if you vote for that party. It's just about to get shoved down our throats.
It's really hard now to choose a party. I mean, in Australia, we've got a two-party system in reality, but it's either you're Labor or you're Liberal. It's either left or right. But I don't think any of them are left or right. Like, we've said this before and we've gone over this before. It's sort of like
they're very blurry,
a middle ground. And being a conservative and with the conservative views, Christian views that we have, it's very hard to choose a party that doesn't cross over some boundaries and some beliefs that we don't have. I mean, you want to vote in a conservative manner, but then there's sort of things where they blend and mold and bridge into the same sort of line that you're really not there.
Yeah,
it's
definitely.
very, very hard. And then if you don't vote for one of the two preference parties, are you wasting your vote? But I mean, I think that's the mentality that we all are thinking, that there can't be another third party that's going to contest to the election because of the fact that we're all in the mindset, well, we have to vote one or the other because if I vote elsewhere, my votes or my preferences won't count.
And I think you feel unsafe in actually making a choice outside of the scope of those two because you're just not even sure whether or not it will count for anything, or if the vote that you cast for that party will just go to a different party that you weren't preferencing in any way, shape or form.
And then we just go back to, well, what am I going to vote? And you vote for your safety. You pick one of the parties that you're all right, well, I'm just going to vote for that. I don't believe in everything, but that's my safe vote that will actually make it count.
The trouble is you've got left and right, as you say, but also blue and red. And if you think about the colour wheel, well, blue and red, they can combine to make a brand new colour. And effectively what we see now as far as policies are concerned is, yes, there are some policies that come out of either side that are very confidently one-way leaning, but there's this blended thing where the blue and red have made purple. And there's this little bit that they sit in the middle and it's agreeing in some manner on topics that should actually be polarised by what you claimed you stand for on something else. So it's just very confusing to know where we're at, and there'll be all the finger pointing and policy blaming of, well, this guy did this before, and fun for everyone, fun for the whole family.
Yeah, I think it's just
strap in and enjoy the ride.
You make a decision, you just think and pray on it, and then hopefully you've made the right one. If you've not made the right one, then oh well, it is what
Look,
it is. It's part of being a man.
Yeah, absolutely. More safety concerns, and we've just had Tropical Cyclone Alfred in Australia on the east coast over here. Had quite an impact. Unfortunately, had a casualty, and several other people have been injured as well. Safety concerns in that regard.
Yeah.
Gosh.
Well, I think first of all, thoughts and prayers are with the family that were with the lost man that passed, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But I think when you look at it with the safety aspect of it, I mean, there's a lot of warnings that are coming out about the weather and the way that the weather's been going and the floodwaters and the rain and that. And I mean, those people, Brisbane and New South Wales, they've not had a cyclone for, what are we looking, 50 years or something, I think I heard.
It's 1974, so we're easily 50 years, which means a lot of the people that are in that space or have been in that space in the last week, few days, whatever, haven't necessarily seen anything like a weather system of this severity in their lifetime. So it's interesting and it can be exciting, and there's the great footage of the Aussie blokes out there like, oh, I'm just going to go for a surf, or I'm just going to try and drive through the flash floods, or I'm going to slide down this hill with a boogie board and have a dandy old time. And great, it's fun, and a joke's a joke and a lark's a bird, but it's quite unsafe, realistically.
I suppose you've got to remember that the weather is really, really powerful. And
especially it's unpredictable.
Unpredictable, especially with floodwaters. I mean, you look at the floodwaters and they might look perfectly still, or it might look, oh, well, there's just a bit of water, but the undercurrent of that can be quite powerful. That's where you see cars getting dragged into the water.
Yeah, it's just, look, it's seriously not worth it. A lot of your mainstream media news outlets in the past week or so, whilst Alfred was doing his thing, just hanging off the coast there, were doing a heap of fear-mongering of it's climate change, it's global warming, and that's why this is happening. Yeah. So maybe we focus a little bit more on just being safe and looking after each other, and don't lean into that kind of...
Well, you had some stats. You listened to a podcast as well with some stats on... the actual, what the mainstream media were claiming on that as well.
There was a Rebel article that highlighted like a heap of the headlines from these mainstream news outlets, and predominantly they're saying like, oh my goodness, I can't believe that this is happening, it's climate change and so on and so forth. But how about we just like, let's follow the safety advice, but maybe don't buy into the fear-mongering just a little bit.
Stick to the safety and...
Just a little bit.
Well, have you got one of those stats at all? No? I think you said it was something like, there's certain weather events and certain percentage.
There was something, and I don't want to misquote it, but it was to do with the percentage of like an increase in these sorts of weather events in that region, which is just simply untrue. The fact that the last one that occurred anywhere near that region was in 1974, I think that speaks for itself.
That does speak for itself.
Let's just chill out a little bit,
This is our only one that we've had so far this year
in that region.
That's been expected to impact. But I think mainly just be discerning on what you're looking at, and not buy into the fear mongering and that, but just be safe, be sensible, and have your wits about you.
Absolutely.
Always question what another person's telling you.
And only up from here, we've got vintage culture appreciation for something that's very close to the old-hearted Mr. Swiley over here. Cassette tapes. Swirls, tell me all about them.
I grew up on cassette tapes. Mm-hmm. I remember buying cassingles, they were called.
Is that the brand? Or?
No, that was when you had a song that you liked on the radio.
Oh.
Or wherever you got it, you could buy that on a single,
It's called a cassingle.
It was called a cassingle, not a single. I think when we moved to CDs, they were just called singles.
Yeah.
But it was called a cassingle, where you get one side would have one song on it, or
Dare
two
I
songs
ask
on it,
if
and you
you
turn
remember
it over.
what you had?
And that's where you hear the term B-side, and that's where you used to get B. Records used to have B-sides as well.
Yeah. I get that terminology, but I don't actually think I'm familiar with the old cassingle.
Cassingle. And when we've got it hardest of all in the generation I grew up, we had to get used to cassingles. Then we had, cassettes, and then we had CDs. and then we moved on to CDs, and I had to get an MP3 player.
And you had to go and get an MP3
and now I've got to go get a subscription.
Yes.
And I was just looking at it the other day. I don't have any music that I physically own anymore because
you
we've
do.
moved on bits and pieces.
Yeah, I don't have any of your singles, but I've got a heap of your old CDs
What
and
happened to
things
the
in
good
a
old
box.
records?
Well,
A box of records.
yeah, I haven't got a box of records. One of our lads has got a little bit of a collection of those, but no, I haven't got any of your old ones. Sorry, you'll have to figure
What's
that
your
out
memory
for
on
yourself.
cassettes?
Definitely listening to the radio on like a boombox, right?
I know what you're going to say.
You got your tape in there, and you got to push your play record at the same time once the song that you like comes on the radio, so you can record the song to listen to it again at your leisure whenever you choose, rather than just sitting around for hours and then waiting for it to come on the radio.
And you have to be quick as well.
You
got to get it right.
Oh,
and
you got
to
to
pause it at the end of it quick so you can make a perfect mixtape.
And if you're a bit rough with those cassettes, they need a bit of TLC after the fact.
Do you remember the pencil or the pen inside there trying to wind them back up?
And they didn't all work the same. It wouldn't just be a standard HB, then you're like, oh, this will do the job. No, maybe it was just like, marginally the wrong size, and it's not going to turn. It will not twist back up inside of that.
The Bic Biros were always the
Bic
best.
Biro is the best.
Biros. And that, we're no way sponsored by Bic here, but Bic Biros were the best. I also remember, do you remember, say your cassette tapes getting a bit old, or I don't know what had happened, or the cassette players getting old and that, and it would eat the tape.
Oh, it eats it?
Yep, and then you'd have to sit there and try and fish it all out so you don't break it or tear it.
I think I do remember that ever so slightly, but perhaps, maybe I might actually be thinking of a VHS. We'll talk about them later.
I've done all sorts of things with cassettes. I remember cutting them and taping them back together so it's got chewed up and it's broken, and you still want, and you can cut them and you can piece them back together, and you get a little.
They're a lot more resilient, all things considered, than what you're dealing with now, right? Like if your phone battery dies, you're not listening to anything. Or even with a CD, it gets a scratch and it skips, and that's it, the end. But your cassettes, they're built to last, built stronger to last longer.
And I suppose that's something that we try and do. We keep physical copies of books, and you've got DVDs. Not that they might become obsolete, but
they might become obsolete. But as long as I have a DVD player, I'm good. Yes,
that's right. Anything else?
On the book factor, I have been reading a series which I'm loving. Not sure if anybody else out there is currently reading it too or has even heard of it, but it's pretty cool. It's called Left Behind. Well, the first one is called Left Behind. It's a book series written by a couple of American fellas. Back in the 90s, they started writing these books, and it's to do with what's happening on earth after the rapture, after Jesus returns to claim his church. And you've got the tribulation period that will begin on earth. Really, really interesting books to read. Actually also kind of cute in the vintage aspect of them because they were written in the 90s, and so much technologically has changed between now and the mid-90s of the tech that they're talking about that they're dealing with to communicate and all the rest through this time. They're really, really great. I have been devouring them, and I did get up to like halfway through the 10th one and realised that there definitely has to be more to this story, and I think I've done myself a mischief somehow and misunderstood that there were 13 of these books in the initial story of, so I had to spend a bit of Swaley's money and go and buy the other 3 at least to get to the end of that story. Oh my goodness, yes. They are taking up some space, but I'm really enjoying them. They're pretty cool. The authors are Tim LaHaye and Jerry B. Jenkins. LaHaye is actually like a recognised speaker on Bible prophecy, and he's spoken a heap in the US and Canada. I'm not sure if he's still doing that now, but he certainly was at the time of writing these books. And they're good. You know, they're using the Bible prophecies from the Old Testament and the New Testament. They talk about individual passages from Revelation regularly. It's really interesting. When I bought those other 3, I found that there's actually 3 more as well, which won't interfere with the story I'm trying to finish, but they're 3 sort of prequel ones that go back to the beginning before the Left Behind one. I'm enjoying them. They're really cool. So obviously they're novels. They're not fact, and we have to get our doctrine from the Bible. So please always go there to find out what the truth of anything could be or would be or should be or is. But yes,
it's definitely worth a read.
I'm enjoying them. I think they're really, really cool and they're interesting, and it's nice to see these verses broken down by clever people into how they could actually unfold for society when such a thing could and will occur. We just don't know when that will be. We're just told to watch and be ready. We've got Revelation 22:20 says, Jesus said, surely I come quickly. And we say, even so, come Lord Jesus. But we don't know when that is. We've got no idea. Anyways, if you're looking for a book series and you're keen on learning a little bit more about what the rapture could all be about, or understanding some of the Bible prophecies, I found these to be really good. If you have read the last 3 of them, the last 6, that I haven't read, no spoilers. Obviously, I know God wins at the end, but I don't want to hear any of the characters in the novels that might go belly up before we get there.
If you have read them and you've got some thoughts and comments, bar the last 3 books, please leave some comments and tell us what your thoughts are and what your feelings are.
Hit me up. I'm loving them.
What you've what your testimony of reading those books are, and where it's touched you and where it's molded and formed your thoughts.
Yes, sounds good. On that note, that was fun.
Always fun.
Thanks for listening. God bless.
And we'll catch you next time.
Peace out.
This content is for informational purposes only and should not be considered as professional advice. We are not meteorologists, pilots, pastors or politicians. You are not more likely to suck less or try harder having listened to these shenanigans.